I'm Bill Auten of Auten Claims Management.
I'm Chantal Roberts of CMR Consulting, and welcome to the Art of Adjusting podcast.
Today, we're going to talk about life as an insurance adjuster from the perspective of property, auto, liability, or workers' compensation adjusters. Our goal is to bring interesting topics in the world of claims adjusting to people who are working as an adjuster now and to people who are considering a career as a claims adjuster. Hey, Chantal, today we're going to talk about agents and the tumultuous relationship between adjusters and adjusters and agents sometimes.
Yeah.
Today's title, from Snark to Synergy. I like that one.
I do too, and because I'm snarky to begin with. Yeah. And
why don't you talk about the email you received from someone that inspired this discussion today?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I received an email from a mutual colleague of ours, and she had said, there was an agent who just got chewed out one side, down the other, diagonal, horizontally, each way, by this adjuster. And this adjuster was telling this agent, who has been in the industry for 40 years. So the agent actually knows what they are doing.
Right.
That the agent is not a party to the insurance contract. The adjuster did not have a duty to speak to the agent. She was just speaking to this agent as a courtesy. And if the agent continued to ask questions, she would no longer speak to the agent. And I was telling our mutual colleague, well, bless her heart, as we say in the South, which could either be a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah. And I said, this adjuster obviously is new. Obviously, this adjuster doesn't know, because while the adjuster is correct that the agent isn't a party to the contract, that contract is just between the insurer, the carrier, and the insured, the policyholder. There are a lot of people involved. For example, the thought leader Barry Zama, who you probably know, has a whole chapter in one of his books and talks quite often about how the insurance adjuster themselves are not party to the insurance contracts.
That's right.
So if we were using that adjuster's logic, she shouldn't even be involved.
Right.
Yeah.
So
our mutual colleague said, I thought it would be a good idea for you, since y'all talk to adjusters and about adjusters, to talk about this symbiotic relationship that everybody has. And I said, it's a really good idea, because sometimes the agents can be the biggest thorn in our side, but sometimes they are the grease or the oil that greases the wheel, so to speak. And they can help us settle a claim or resolve a claim faster than we can do it ourselves.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, I guess, isn't there? Let's start off by first focusing on what the difference is between an agent and an adjuster and what their roles are.
Yeah, so when I talk about it,
but to do that, we also have to clarify the difference between an agent and a broker. So
yes, that's where I was going with that, because we tend to use the word agent to solely mean the person who is selling insurance. And technically, there are two types of people who do that. There's the agent, who represents the carrier, and there's the producer that represents the policy holder. And the overarching term is producer, because I actually get very angry, I guess. I get on my high horse, so to speak, when I'm teaching or facilitating. They don't like me to say teaching, facilitating with the institutes, with 530, the legal aspect of it, because when they talk about agency at the institutes, they only talk about the people who sell. And I say, but adjusters can be agents. That's how we get into this whole ROR, waiving rights, and
Right.
estoppel, and yada yada yada. So um, those are the two types of quote unquote agents. The people who sell insurance is your produce, or the overarching term is producers. I will probably lapse into agent or agency simply because that is our lay term, but it is producers. So either the broker or the agent themselves are parties uh, in regards to the insured. They just have different relationships to the carrier.
Yeah, the agent is representing the insurance company. The broker is representing the policyholder. So if you go out and get a broker, they're kind of on your team in the insurance transaction. If you go to an agent, the agent is kind of on the insurance company's team. Now, that does not mean that there's any sort of adversarial element to it. Both of them are going to be very customer centric. Both of them are going to likely go to bat for you in equal measure if there's a claim dispute that they think that they can help to get resolved. The difference is that basic difference is that an agent has binding authority, so it can actually act on behalf of the insurance company. The broker can't do that. The broker can merely represent you. So it's important to understand that although that difference exists and those relationship varies, those relationships vary between the two, don't think that the broker is a person that's going to come at you as an adjuster because they're only on the side of the policyholder or anything like that. Like I said, agents and brokers are both equally going to go to bat for their policyholder.
And if we're
So
thinking about why or who they represent, and whose authority they have, and when we're talking to them as an adjuster versus talking to the insured, well, a broker is the representative of the policyholder. So talking to the broker is just like talking to the insured. And the same with the agent, the retail agent. They're a representative of the carrier. So it's just like talking to ourselves, so to speak. So again, there's no reason to have this animosity,
right.
because again, those
The
guys can't
adjuster is,
help us.
like you said earlier, the adjuster is also an agent of the company. Agent doesn't just mean salesperson. But if you want to talk about agents and brokers in the same vein, the word producer is a good way to refer to them. And so how does a producer differ from an adjuster? Well, producer is there to sell the insurance products to the policyholder. The adjuster's job is to basically service that policy and provide customer service and claim adjustment services when a claim occurs. So that's the two basic differences.
Yeah. Yeah. So, side note, uh, I have started looking for a publicist for my upcoming book, Once Upon a Claim, Fairy
Great.
Tales to Protect Your Assets. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I've been explaining to these publicists that I'm interviewing for the joy of representing me. Because, everybody's more familiar with the producer, and they're like, so what do you do? And I say, okay, so underwriting writes the promise. That's the carrier, and the promise is the policy. The producers are the ones that sell the promise. You're going to be covered, but it's the adjuster that keeps that promise. That's where the rubber meets
Right.
the road.
Right.
And that is a great way to remember the difference. Those guys out there, the producers, they're the ones kind of on the front line. I know we adjusters feel like we're on the front line, but those are the guys out on the front line selling that promise. And we're the ones who have to keep that promise.
Amen. So let's talk about how to communicate with these producers.
Yeah.
There's a dynamic that goes on with most agents that I deal with, where they are very curious about the progress of the claim, the status. Part of it is because they're just human beings and they care. If it's a really bad claim, they want to know. They have a lot of times they'll have a personal relationship with the customer. So if that customer's house burns down, the agent's usually in their driveway talking with them about it. So you've
That's
got
something
that.
to remember. It
Oh
is
yeah, yeah.
actually as insurance companies, as carriers themselves become more centralized, they tend to keep the producers decentralized. So, I mean, the producers actually go to church with the insured.
Yeah.
Their kids are on the same basketball team, or not on the same football team, on the same cheerleading squad, all of that. So the producers do have a vested interest
Oh
in
yes,
the
they're
well-being of
community
their community.
oriented people.
Right.
They're going to be at um, the baseball games, softball games, bowling leagues. They're going to be at the Chamber of Commerce events. They are getting out there. Their job is to become known in the community and volunteer and just, they're not trying to get famous on a national level for the most part. They want to know the people that are within their zip code mostly. And which brings me to a quick side note that if you ever get a claim from a small town agent that's really, really, really far away from the policyholder, be
You
careful.
should be alert. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's going to be
because
some kind of family relationship there, I would think.
yeah,
Um,
because when you see that dynamic happen, what it means is that that policyholder had a hard time getting insurance, and they started to move to outer rings until they could find an agent that didn't, wasn't familiar with their claim
Look how
history or whatever.
suspicious your little claims mind is looking at
Well,
fraud and everything. Because I'm just sitting there going,
this
you know what? That's just Uncle Bob being an insurance
it,
producer.
it could
And
be, it could be, but
uh,
we have seen cases where we get a risk in back in my carrier days where we get a claim on a piece of business that didn't really fit the normal, and come to find out that this person just couldn't get insurance from anyone in town because they all knew this place was a disaster. So he went down to, 3 counties away to find an agent that would write it. So anyway, that's a complete side note, but
no, it's a very good point because it does lead into what we'll probably talk about in just a little bit. When I mentioned that agent can be the oil that greases the wheel, so to speak. And I know that we'll mention it here, but when you can't get in touch with the insured, or when the policyholder just is giving you as the adjuster a hard time, sometimes it's beneficial to reach out to that uh, producer
yep,
because they're an insurance professional. And that's one thing that this particular adjuster did not realize, is that the producer is an insurance professional, just like we are.
right,
And they have licenses, just like we do. They have to go through continuing education and ethics classes, just like we do. And um, sometimes you can go to that producer and go, hey, can you have a word? Because again, remember, they're at the softball teams, they're in the bowling league. So they are going to be more quote unquote believable than the big bad insurance adjuster
right,
trying to quote unquote pull one over or
right.
lowball or whatever the public believes that the insurance carrier is going to do. Anyway, you
And
were
you're going to
saying,
come across agents that are very well versed in insurance policy language, and some that aren't because they're newer or just not as experienced. So you have to keep in mind that you don't, until you actually talk to them and get to know them, you're not actually going to know what their experience level is. And uh, first of all, don't ever try and pull the wool over anybody's eyes in this business. It's going to work out badly for you if you do, but it's
it's
going to work out
unethical.
especially badly if you're up against somebody who really knows what they're talking about, and you come in and try and like I say, pull the wool over their eyes. So
Yeah.
be cognizant of that and be respectful. And so
Respectful communications. We were kind of talking about that, and
yeah,
the tips for clear emails and phone calls.
yep,
When I have and this is something that I would recommend for everybody, although a lot of people don't want to do it. They don't like to do it because they fear conflict. And this is when I say role playing or acting things out helps out get over that fear. Is, for example, when you have that reservation of rights letter, that coverage issue, call the agent or the producer first before you call the insured, and you say, hey, wanted to let you know such and such and such and such is going to happen. I'm going to send out an ROR, reservation of rights letter. And the next call, after I hang up with the insured, is they're going to call you. And so I just want to let you know. And then what you're doing is you as the adjuster are building that bridge of respect, of communication with the agent, and that agent can help you. And that agent may even thank you because they're like, I told that insured that they were underinsured, and I'm going to, buy me, I bet I can sell me some more insurance now.
Right, right.
So
Yeah. So when you are interacting with the agent, well, okay, I've got another point to make on that, but I want to finish up the communication, the clear communication part here. Emails and phone calls, you need to be extremely respectful. Don't be short, don't be terse in your emails. Don't berate anybody. Don't berate the policyholder to the agent, and don't do the other way around either, because they talk, chances are they're friends or even related to each other. Just don't, and it's unprofessional to do that anyway. So I don't know why
it
you would,
is.
but
Right.
Apparently we have to tell everybody based on your friend's email. We have to
Yes,
explain this
yeah.
stuff to them.
And I did say to our colleague, I said, again, bless her heart, she's either new or this adjuster was having a bad day. And listen, as adjusters, we all have bad days. And
Sure.
I know myself, I remember a very bad day that I had, and an insured was yelling at me. And I told the insured, I cannot do this right now. And I terminated the phone call. I hung up
Mhm.
on the insured. And you know what? We all have those days.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have it. But I told our colleague, I said, either way, that's not an excuse for this adjuster's actions. So
Yeah.
that's why we're bringing it up. Even if you have a bad day, you just go, I can't talk to you right now. I'm having a bad day. And you just hang up and don't take any more phone calls, which is something I will rarely, if ever, say to an adjuster. But
Right. And
go
if you
ahead.
find yourself getting out of sorts and you lose your temper or whatever, and you need to terminate the call, think about how you're going to re-enter the conversation with some humility and maybe a small apology if necessary.
Yes, I was going to
Um,
say that. Yes.
but we all have to play nice. I mean, I think that's the basic rule here.
It's a small
Um,
sandbox.
yeah,
We all do know one another.
yeah, and these agents are, you know, they're kind of on your team too. Um, it's tantamount to going to another adjuster in your company and treating them like that. Now, if you do that, there's some repercussions you're going to have to think about. You're going to have to walk past that person every day, and you're going to have to sit down in the lunchroom with them. Well, the same dynamic happens with agents. If you are dealing with an agent, chances are you're going to have another claim with them down the road.
Yeah.
So why
They
would you?
tend to either, I'm sorry, go. I was going to say, because they're either captive agents,
Yep.
like some of our bigger agencies, or they're independents, but they end up like the brokers, but they end up selling through one carrier
Mhm.
more often than not. So anyway, you were going to say, why would we? I interrupted.
Why would you ever damage that relationship? Because this is somebody like I've known people for almost 30 years that I've been working in this business that are outside the insurance companies that I work for. That would include agents, public adjusters, contractors, experts, all those folks. Now, do I get along with all of them all the time? No, I don't, but I sure do make an effort. And I think they do too. So claimant attorneys, for example, I don't know how
Yes.
many,
Okay.
I have multiple claims with the same guys
Oh, yeah.
ladies. And I deal with them all the time. It doesn't help me to get in fights with them and be mean. So, and for the most part, they reciprocate
Yes.
for the most
Now,
part.
side note, you did mention public adjusters and claim or policyholder attorneys or claimant attorneys if we're dealing with a third party. Um, Everything that we are saying, you and I are saying right now, applies to those folks as well. But
Yep.
the onus of this particular podcast was an alert by our colleague about an adjuster and a producer's relationship. And that's why I came to you and I said, hey, we need to talk about that, because either we've got a new adjuster or we have an adjuster who was having a bad day. And if it was an adjuster having a bad day, they probably know what they did and they should call and apologize. That is the adult thing to do. But if it's a new adjuster, let's disabuse the new adjusters of this idea that we don't have to talk to people that aren't in the contract. Technically true, but you know what? I've talked to an adult's mother before. I mean, they were an adult. They were, I'm
Yeah.
not talking 18 adult. I'm talking like 35-year-old adult, but their
Right.
mother called and said, he's not understanding. Can you explain it to me so I can explain it to him? And I'm like, sure. If you speak the insured's language and you speak my language, I'm okay with it. Now, if they start, interfering, then yes, I'm going to put down the stopping block right there. But that's not what we're talking
Yeah. And the agent, I think, or producer, I think has not just a right to find out what's happening on the claim within reason. I mean, I've had agents call and ask for copies of my reports that I send to the carrier. I'm not going to do that, unless the carrier says that they want me to do that. I'm not going to do that. But I can give them a status. I can be nice to them. I can give them what I can, what I am allowed to give them, and maintain that relationship.
Do you and I think it's important for us to say why the agent is interested in what is going on, not only for the fact that that agent lives in that area, goes to church with these people, plays on, the softball league, their children spend the night at each other's homes, that kind of thing.
Right.
Um,
And I think we started that and we got sidetracked.
we got
But you're right.
sidetracked. We
Right.
did. But yeah, go ahead. I'll let you talk.
Well, the other reasons that they want to know what's going on with the claim is, it can have an effect on their income, because sometimes these folks, the way the contingency structure is, a very large claim can impact whether or not they get a bonus at the end of the year. That's selfish. Well, maybe, but they have a right to know. They want to know how bad this is. And while you don't have to disclose all the details, you can say, well, it's reserved at X. I don't think sharing reserves with an agent is prohibited by any carriers that I'm aware of. I think most carriers would, be obligated to share that information with the producer. But
It
the other
also
reason,
helps.
go ahead.
Oh, go. I bet we're getting ready to go to the same place. Renewals.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if the renewals happen to be going very close to when the claim is ongoing,
Yep.
the agent needs to know what's going on with the claim, because they're having to do loss runs.
Yep.
And they're having to do that report to the carrier. And you sit there and you go, I am the carrier. I'm the adjuster. I'm the carrier. Of course, no. Have you ever had someone walk downstairs, even if we're all working from home, but quote unquote walk downstairs from underwriting to the claims department and look up their information all by themselves? Absolutely not. Those are the
Right.
underwriters. That's a whole different podcast.
Right. Well,
I bet that's where you were going.
Yeah, the renewals is exactly what I was going to say, is that they may have to prepare that this company is going to non-renew them because of this claim. So they want to get ahead of things and maybe start shopping around to see where they can place this person next. So there's probably more that I can't think of. If we had an agent on here or a producer of some sort, they would, I'm sure, be able to provide us with a healthy list.
I did try to get one, just FYI. I didn't book it fast enough. He had already, um, you know, made plans for the day, but good for him because he's a speaker at a big gig. So yay.
Cool. Yay.
Yeah. So tips for the clear emails and calls is, of course, be respectful. Let the agent producer, let the producers know what they want to know within reason, of course. If
Mhm.
they're asking what the status of the claim is, tell them. Uh, Sometimes I personally am a little hesitant, especially if there's a fraud investigation. I might not put that in writing because I don't know the relationship between the producer and the insured, and I don't want to tip them off or anything like that. I might just make a phone call and say, hey, it's under a SIU investigation or something, and that's all
Right.
I can tell you right now. But again, for all of these reasons that we've mentioned before, uh, that's what this is why you want to do it. And that's the importance of listening to what the producers are asking you, is to kind of read between the lines, because then you can see if they're just literally being a pain in the butt,
Right.
or if they're trying to be a force on behalf of the insured,
Right.
trying to help
Now,
move things along, you know?
I've had agents that have been very, very aggressive on a claim to the extent where they were almost become acting like a public adjuster. And those, it's very rare that you encounter something like that. But when you do, it's important to understand that you need to explain to the agent that their role is not to do that. You'll take whatever they may have to offer you, um, and say that it'll be under consideration, but you shouldn't be negotiating anything with them.
No.
If they present the contractor's estimate, for example, and they want to start negotiating with you on the claim, I would step far away from that politely and mark your file that that's what happened. But
Yes.
um,
And you should, as an adjuster, start recognizing these signs of conflict that are getting ready to come up. And it is more, thus the name, the art of adjusting. It is more of an art form that if this adjuster that got involved in this issue is new, they will learn. But because you and I, with our experience, 20 plus years each of us, we can see this going sideways,
yeah,
about a mile down the road. We're like, oh yeah, okay, let's try to circle around and gather everybody back up into the fold and
right.
everything. But yeah, if you see the signs of an agent getting a little bit too aggressive, or you just aren't sure, talk to your mentor, talk to your team leader. Maybe even say, hey, I can't negotiate with you, even though you may be a representative of the insured. I've got to negotiate with the insured or their legal representative, who would have either a letter of representation or some kind of assignment of benefits or something like that that they have with the public adjuster. Um, Ethically, I mean, you can blame yourself if you're looking for a way to get out of it. Just say, look, ethically, for my license as an adjuster, even if you don't have licenses like Missouri, Kansas, Illinois, they don't have adjusters licenses.
Right.
But I mean, ethically, you really can't do that as an adjuster. You have to settle with the insured policyholder or the owner of the property, and that is not going to be the producer.
When it comes to damages disputes and an agent, if the agent is calling you to present numbers or present figures that they believe should settle the claim, the rule that I would adhere to is use your ears more than your mouth in those conversations, and just take the information, make it part of the file. Use it in your reports and to work your way through negotiations with the policyholder or their public adjuster or their attorney. But when it
Yeah,
comes to coverage issues, that's when you can use your ears and your mouth equally, because it's important to have conversations with the agent because they may know something about the incident or the coverage that you're not aware of.
true story. I use this all the time with my adjusters when I was a claims director.
Yep.
And again, it goes back to picking up the phone and actually talking to people, which, I mean, look, even I don't like to do it, okay?
Mhm.
I don't even like to do it. But um, I was getting ready to issue a reservation of rights letter to be followed by a letter of declination for a claim involving a semi tractor trailer rig where this particular unit was not listed on the policy. And we had done all of our investigation, proved that it wasn't listed on the policy, have the picture of the VIN number of the truck that's in the shop, and got the policy, went all the way down it, not there. And so I called the agent, the producer, and in this particular incident, I happened to be a broker. And I said, hey, look, here's the deal. I'm going to send out this reservation of rights letter. You know that you're the insured's going to call you next. And the next
Mhm.
question he's going to have is, what do I pay insurance for? What do I pay my premiums for? You know, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. And the producer goes, oh, you mean this endorsement right here where that truck got added 3 months ago? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that would have been good to send to me when you sent me the
Yeah.
claim,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
That happens a lot, actually. Changes made a week or two before a claim happens and it doesn't update in the system. So you get a declarations page that is now inaccurate and you have no way of knowing unless you talk to somebody. And usually that's the agent or, depends on the company, but the underwriter might
yeah,
be able to give you answers there too.
yeah. And so again, that is talking about having open and clear communications, treating the people with respect. Because think about how that producer would feel if the first phone call they got was from the insured yelling,
Right.
you know,
Not knowing the
I
background.
not knowing the background. And I even copy my agents and producers on reservation of rights letters and letters
Yep.
of declination.
Yep.
I didn't do it on settlement letters, but I did do it on RORs and declination letters. Because again, I want them to know exactly, and I'm calling before I call the insured, because I do call the insured and let them know, hey, you've got this coming down. And that is a great way to explain the coverage decisions made. And we may get in an argument about it. And
Mhm.
then that's when, as an adjuster, you can go, you know what, you may have a point. There is the whole contract of adhesion that I was just teaching my RMI students about yesterday.
Yep.
We talked about the contract of adhesion theory. It's going to be on the final, y'all. Pay attention, and so I'm going to bring it up to the carrier. And that is respecting the producer's experience and their expertise.
Yep. Yep. And it's heading things off at the pass because
Yes.
there's always the possibility that the declarations page that you have is not the one that is actually in place.
Case in point, my claim.
Yes.
Case in
I've had
point, my
similar
claim.
claims. I had just last winter, I think I had a claim. There was a named peril policy and and it was basically an HO1
Ooh,
and they
you don't
had
see
freeze
those much
damage.
anymore.
Yeah. And so I called the agent and I was like, there's going to be a coverage problem here. I just want to let you know. She's like, what are you talking about? A coverage problem? I said, well, we've got an HO1 here. And she said, what? I said, she goes, hang on. So she said, I'll call you back. And about an hour later, the carrier called and said, yeah, somebody dropped the ball. There was an email that was sent, a week after the policy was written and never got updated. So
Yeah,
please settle
yeah,
the claim. So,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I know a lot of people, and I kind of lost this inhibition, I guess, as I got older. don't want to appear stupid in front of other people. But sometimes it does help me get things that I need.
Right.
And I don't mean the country bumpkin from Arkansas stupid, which I can do, and I can say that because I'm from Arkansas. Uh, I'm talking New York stupid, maybe. I don't. But it's just like, golly gee whiz, I just don't see it here, and I'm wondering if you can help me. Or golly gee whiz, I don't think I can do that. That there's an ethical problem for me in my license,
Mm.
and I got to settle with the insured or something like that. And another way of looking at that is saving face. You provide the other person, because they could be right, they could be wrong. Who knows?
Right.
It's going to be the carrier in that particular instance that makes that decision, not necessarily you. So don't burn that bridge, which is kind of what this adjuster did in this particular instance, because
Yeah.
the producer, I did get an update. The producer is going to the vice president of claims. I mean,
That's
not
the other
even
thing
that,
that you
not
need to think about.
yeah, yeah.
They
I
have
mean,
the
this,
agents will have access to people at the company that are way higher than you and likely way higher than anybody in the claims department.
yes,
So imagine a scenario where this sort of thing happens with one of the top producers for the insurance company in a particular city.
brings in millions.
Brings in millions. If that person has something to complain about, you
Oh,
can bet that they have the ear of somebody in the C-suite and they're going to get a call. And you don't want to be the adjuster that
yes,
gets, because they're not going to call you. They're going to call your boss
your boss. Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
going to ream that person out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
going to
And
go bad.
who runs downhill and claims is in the valley? I mean, that's the motto that I live by. Who
Yep.
runs
Yep.
downhill and claims is in the valley? And yeah, and that's actually what's happening, is that
Yeah.
that agent, a producer, is not calling the adjuster's boss. They're
No.
calling someone in the ivory tower in home
Somebody
office.
who they're calling the person that came to their office to convince them to write policies with that company, the
Absolutely.
marketing
Yes,
or
it
that
is. It
person's
is.
boss.
Yes, it is not going well for that adjuster. And that's why I have to believe that that adjuster is new. Because I think if that adjuster was even having a bad day, I think that this would have all been smoothed over.
Well,
You know,
here's another thought about that. The part of the reason that that could happen in today's uh, insurance environment is that claims people are so far removed from underwriting and the agency side of it that they don't really understand the dynamics. They're just another person bothering them that day, where they need to have a, like, if you work at a smaller company like I did for 10 years, you're going to become familiar with the way these relationships work, and that these especially independent agents, these are, small time, usually small time operations. Sometimes they're very large, but they're still like a figurehead, the person that started the agency 30 years ago or 40 years ago. Um, and those are the people that know their policyholders. And those are the people that were sold, were convinced by somebody at your company to sell policies for them. Um, and if you fail to recognize those dynamics as a claims person, you're not doing yourself a service. You're going to wind up potentially getting yourself into a bit of trouble sometimes.
and here's the other thing, and I'm going to be showing my age and get all curmudgeonly on everybody. And back in my day, and I walked to school without any shoes up a hill in snow, even though it was Arkansas, we didn't get any snow, that kind of thing. Is now that everybody, especially claims adjusters, are working from home, we don't have the capability to listen to our supervisor's phone calls. because when I first started, and I'm going to give Liberty Mutual a shout out here, shout out, good props. They had us in pods of 4. There were 3 basic adjusters, a brand new one who's me, and then 2 more senior ones. And then we had the 4th one who was our team captain. And that team captain, so to speak, reviewed us 3 files. And then he or she had maybe 50 files, while the rest of us had 100, 200, whatever, because we were liability. And if that team captain heard me getting frustrated or a little out of line or whatever, I remember this one phone call. I could hear him in the background going, "Don't say it. Do not say it, Chantal. Don't." Don't. He's pulling the ring, like trying to get me to do, and that was good because I learned. And I listened to the 2 adjusters, the senior adjusters sitting behind me who had 10 years on it, stuff like that. I listened to how they talked, and that taught me things. And I think that we miss that. So that could be a training thing. I talk a lot about doing a role play, and I just took a training course where people were like, "Oh, don't say the word role play. People don't like the word role play." I don't know how else to say it. Acting out, you think of a child as being bad. So I don't know what another, way to say, let's play a part. Let's go through all the scenarios so that you get familiar with someone, quote unquote, yelling at you, or the correct responses if someone is yelling at you, or how to de-escalate a
Right.
scenario. For example, I talked about it in my book, The Art of Adjusting, that what I found particularly helpful when someone started yelling at me is I would go silent. And it's kind of like what you were just talking about. God blessed us with 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should do twice as much listening
Right.
as we do
Right.
talking. And they'll get all of that steam out, and they'll ask me, "Are you still there?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm listening.
Mhm.
I'm writing everything down. I am listening to you."
Yep. And then state back what they said to you, because
Absolutely.
then they will know then that you actually did listen.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell them. I say, because we have to keep notes
Mhm.
as the file. If it's not in the file, it didn't happen. So I'll say, "Yes, I'm typing this up." And then as soon as they are finished, I say, "Okay, this is what I have. Is that correct?" And they'll say yes. And they may go on for another tirade for 15 minutes. Let them. Because
Right.
a lot of times, and I realize that we're probably talking more about the policyholder than the agent right now, or the producer. But I think this is human nature, just period, is that a lot of times when people are yelling at you, they're frightened. They just don't know what's going to happen. And
Right.
you are perceived to have some kind of mystical power as the adjuster to deny claims and to not give them money that they need to fix their roof, or that their best friend or their cousin or their children's best friends parents need. Or again, they're in the community, so they don't want to be ostracized at the grocery store, you know.
Right.
um, so I think that's how companies can help, is having like these training things where we kind of talk about how to deal with this sort of stuff. It's a soft skill.
The pod concept that you've talked about is excellent and should be used for claim departments. But there's another dynamic, and it reminds me of a carrier here in New York State that I deal with. They have a building that is shaped like a star almost. And there's a central location, and then there's these wings that come off the central location. And it was initially their bright idea, or the architect's bright idea, that you would have claims in one section, underwriting in another, accounting in another, management in another, and so on. What happened, though, is that building structure created these silos of people that never interacted with each other, and claims didn't know enough about the challenges that underwriting faced and vice versa. For all the grief that you get as an adjuster on the phone, sit into an underwriting department someday for a week and just listen to what goes on there, because they've got stuff going on there too that we as claims people don't really understand or encounter. So, their jobs aren't necessarily, roses and fairy tales also.
I think that this is a great way for companies to also train people, is to recognize that we're all cogs in a wheel, so to speak.
Yeah.
The underwriter should sit with claims.
I
Claims
would,
should
that the
sit with the
pod
underwriter.
concept that you described with 4 people, I think there should be 2 underwriters and 2 claims people in there.
And well, I think that there should be an agent in there too, or a producer. I mean, because
That's a
listen,
little
they've got,
difficult to make happen, but I get your point.
yeah, because they've got the same issues, so sometimes they get yelled at, what did you sell me? Da 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 da.
Sure.
And they're like, well, you were the one who wanted to say 15% or more.
Mhm.
You're the one who wants the cheaper insurance. So don't come to me, just
And
because the adjuster is adjusting the claim that you bought.
I've talked with agent or people who used to be agents who left the industry because it was just too much to handle
It's
for them.
horrible. Yeah, yeah.
So it's not it's not a simple job. So if you're a claims person and you think that you're the one dealing with all of the garbage and all of the grief, um,
Yeah.
uh, check yourself there, because
Yeah.
those jobs aren't necessarily easy either.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of discussed everything. Do you
I think so.
just like recap? Are there any? I gave some ideas as to what you could do if you're getting frustrated. You just step away. The hard thing is recognizing that before you go
Yes.
on, and that just takes some maturity. Gosh knows it took me several years to do it, and it still catches me off guard
Yeah.
sometimes. Um,
I think one golden rule that you can apply, not just the ears and the mouth thing, but don't say anything to an agent that you wouldn't say to your grandmother.
Yes,
I
I
think
use
that'd
the
be a good one.
grandmother rule over and over and over again. I always said that to my team, to my
Yeah,
adjusters when I was do you want your grandmother to be treated like this? And
right.
everybody be like, oh no. And is this how you would explain things to your grandmother? No. Your grandmother doesn't know the first thing about insurance, does she? No. Well, then why are you just like rushing through 5 minutes of a phone call? It's going to take you 15 minutes. It's going to take you 30 minutes. Deal with it.
Right.
I'm sorry. This is part of your job. You
Yep.
you've got to spend that time. So yeah, it's the I don't we could do the golden rule, treat others
Mhm.
as you would like to be treated,
Yep.
treat others like you want your grandmother treated. Um, 2 ears, one mouth, step
Yep.
away.
Yep.
Step away, run away, be Monty Python, run away.
These are rules that we've all been taught through our lives. As long as we had, decent parents and decent teachers growing up, these are rules that should all be ingrained in people. But it is worthwhile to bring these things up again and talk about them in this forum and context, because we all know adjusters who have gone off the rails a little bit and done maybe misbehaved a little bit. And I
that
mean, you don't have to work that way.
I would say also be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us.
Yes.
And listen again in 2 weeks, which I forgot what we're going to be talking about. We
Oh,
have,
oh.
yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. This is going to be so exciting. So,
I'm gonna be
you sent
ready.
me, yeah, okay. I was going to say, you sent me an article about Santa Claus in a mass tort litigation event, and we got a hold of Santa Claus's legal counsel, Donna Meehan of Kochman and Simmons, and she's going to join us to talk about Santa Claus breaking and entering and stealing things. I mean, this is obviously not the
Interesting.
story, not the story. I mean, this is a breaking story. You sent me the article. This is obviously not the story that we've heard growing up. So I am super duper excited about this. So everybody stay tuned. Hit
Yes,
that subscribe button so you do not miss this.
you don't want to miss it.
You do not want to miss it.
Okay, Chantal. Well, you have a great rest of your week here, and
You
we will talk
too.
soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on the Art of Adjusting podcast, where we talk about life as an insurance adjuster.
If you enjoyed this podcast or this episode, please give us 5 stars and a review. It does help the algorithm pick us up.
Hit that subscribe button real quick and tell all of your adjuster friends to check this out as well. For independent adjusting services, go to www.autin.claims. And for anyone interested in working as an independent liability adjuster, go to the Contact Us tab to join our roster.
In the meantime, you can contact me at theartofadjusting.com for consulting and training purposes.